swa. Om Tat Saviturvaraniyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimai Dhiyo Yo Naha Prachodayat. I bow to God, I ask His blessings on all, and I bow to God in you. It's a blessing for me to be able to be on these programs and to be able to share my great Guru's teachings. I'm nobody, but he can use anybody who's willing, and I am willing. I want so much to get his message known in this country. He isn't so much known even as a person, although much more now than when I lived here 40 years ago. Then they hardly knew his name. Now they know his name. Many people have read Autobiography of a Yogi, but they still don't know his message. But I'm not here as an American. I'm here as a disciple of this great Indian master. It isn't out of loyalty to my Guru that I want to make him known. That would certainly be laudable and a sattvic desire. But it's more than that. He had a message that the world needs today. And when I came to him in 1948, 56 years ago, I had that same thought. The world needs this message. It's starving for joy. It's starving for love. It's starving for a little peace. And when you see all the hatred and anger and racial, national, religious, all the warfare and rivalry and so on, it's so unnecessary. It's like one wave fighting another wave. They do it when the winds are high, and they do it when the storm of Maya is high. But when the waves begin to subside, they see we're all a part of the same one ocean. Let me read to you from this book that I compiled when I lived with him. It's called Conversations with Yogananda. And I've told this story before. This is the penalty I pay for not preparing my talks. I talked about this a few days ago. Now I'm going to read it, but never mind, it's a great story. Master said, I met an 80-year-old woman in Seattle who had been an atheist all her life. She was completely changed by our meeting. Thereafter, she would listen all the time to a recording of my voice. She kept orange flowers on her altar as a reminder of our meeting. In the few years that were left to her, she attained salvation. So you see, the Master concluded, it isn't only a matter of when you come onto the path. Above all, it is a question of how much energy you devote once you actually set foot on it. As Jesus said, the last, whether coming last in time as disciples or continuing to the last of their lives, shall be first. And many that came first or early will be last. This is a very important point to keep in mind. First of all, it doesn't matter when you came. The early disciples, they have a certain pride of precedence, and it's okay. But nonetheless, I remember one who came to our Guru just, I think it was 3 days, at least in the last week, before he left his body. And this turned out to be one of his very best disciples, Brother Mokshananda, a wonderful man. It doesn't matter when you come, it matters how much energy you put into it once you do come. You can go for years and put 5 minutes of meditation in a day. You can go for years and put 15 hours of meditation in a day. Both of those are not the real criterion. Although it's much better to meditate longer than shorter, it's still better to, first of all, when you meditate, put all your heart into it. And then when you're meditating, when you're working, be meditating. Think of God all the time. I saw a beautiful movie last night which was about human love, and I was thinking how there are moments of sweetness in life, but they all fade. Either death separates people, or they become diluted by disagreements, misunderstandings. Only God can always understand you and never misunderstand you. All the things that we are doing in this world, we think we are doing them for one reason, and really it's all for another. And sometimes surely you have asked yourself the question, well, what is it for? What's it all about? Why do people have to be born only to die? What kind of pleasures do they get if you look back over your life? Can you really point to very many high points? Yes, you can probably point to a few. I certainly hope so. You can also point to some difficult times. Life, as I said, is like an ocean. God is the ocean, symbolically, and we symbolically are the waves. And the interesting thing about this play of Maya is that the waves go up and down, and for every corresponding wave, there has to be another corresponding trough. It can't be different. Because you see, the waves, the surface of the ocean remains the same. I used to cross the ocean with my parents every 3 years. My father would have a vacation of 3 months, and we would leave Romania, where I was born, to go back to America, where they were born. And my mother commented, and I also remember that she said I would say, "Oh, I love the sea, I love the sea." But I think it was subconsciously, I had that memory of this constant up and down, which is life itself. So many fulfillments, so many disappointments, so many joys, so many sorrows. And in the end, if you are wise, you will be sort of like a large ocean liner compared to a little rowboat. A little rowboat on the sea will go bobbing up and down. Sometimes it can be engulfed in water as a wave breaks on it. But an ocean liner is long enough, by and large. I have to admit, the first days out at sea I would get seasick, but it's large enough to pretty well cancel out the movement of the waves so that more or less it goes steadily. Well, we need to be like ocean liners. We need to go through life so that when things go easy and when things seem happy and when things go wonderfully for you, don't jump up and down like winners at a radio or television quiz. Oh, how wonderful, exciting, oh, and everybody's hugging each other and so on. And what happens the next day? Probably more bills come in, probably some disappointment. It just is the way of this world. I used to notice that every day that I really gave in, I told this story a little while back. It's really a delightful story. It's worth repeating. For years, I wanted to, I imagined myself traveling around the country with a motorhome. That way, I wouldn't have to stay in hotels. I would be able to sleep in the motorhome. I would be able to carry my, like a turtle carrying its shell on its back, I could carry my home with me wherever I went. And when we finally, before we made a cross-country tour in 78, then we made another one in 79. And I'll admit to you, I was so absolutely delighted that I just laughed gleefully. It was a desire I'd had for so many years. In the back of my mind, I knew, well, I'll have to pay for it, okay, but it's worth it, I'm enjoying it. Well, the same evening, we were parked in the parking lot of a large grocery store, a Safeway supermarket. And the driver got up from the wheel to go back to the refrigerator, not realizing that it was in gear, even though it didn't seem to be moving. And while he was at the refrigerator, this motorhome was slowly moving. We couldn't feel it until suddenly, bam, it hit the wall, the stone wall of this supermarket. I was perched on one foot and one knee, reaching something from a cupboard up above. And the moment we hit, I was thrown headlong along the corridor and broke a finger. And I laughed just as hard because I saw that's the way of Maya. For every plus, there has to be a minus. I knew it would come. I might as well get it over with. But you know, that's also a very good thing. That when things go wrong, I know I had a bad fall recently. I've been using a few cosmetics to conceal it, but 3 weeks ago my eye was completely swollen shut. I couldn't look out of it. Um, I hit the sharp edge of a cabinet just with all my weight. It sounded in the next room like a cricket bat. And the pain of it was certainly very much, but it just didn't matter. The thing that really concerned me was that we had just bought some new rugs and I was dripping blood all over the place, so fortunately we got that out. But the thing is that what does it matter? What does it matter when things go wrong, when things go right? You see that the world is always like that. Don't let it bother you. I've noticed that this is a very good discipline. I don't want to urge it upon you because I don't want to make you fanatical, but with me it comes quite naturally, basically because I don't like the feeling of Novocaine, that other bad feeling you get in your mouth for hours afterwards. I'd rather just get it over with. So many times I've had to go for a root canal, or I told another story the other day when I broke my tooth off, and I just don't care for anesthesia, so I tell them to go ahead and work on it. And the dentist will be perspiring thinking of the pain I'm feeling, and in truth, I'm usually sitting back there composing music or doing meditation or just not thinking about it. You know, when you have a joy or a fulfillment or some success in your life, then pull back from it mentally. That doesn't mean don't enjoy anything. I don't mean that the attitude of a yogi is to look at life and see a beautiful sunset and listen to lovely birds singing and see beautiful experiences and episodes in life and turn away with a yawn. Not at all. God gave this world. He enjoys it. I think it would be an insult to him if we didn't enjoy it. But we can enjoy it inside or outside. I'll never forget my guru and his chief disciple, Rajarshi Janakananda, how whatever was happening, they would just sort of quietly chuckle and glance at each other. This inward joy is actually much more beautiful, much more true. And then you'll see you'll develop the power so that when things are difficult for you, when you find people hating you or angry with you or whatever, just take it inside. Don't take their hatred inside. Just remind yourself that all is God. No one can take God away from you. Wherever you go, He is with you. And I have seen this to be true, that when you think of Him, and it's not enough just to think of Him, when you meditate regularly, when you commune with Him, then you find that in every experience of life, there is a certain joy that never leaves you. That joy is what I'm talking about, and it's not something you can create. People say to me, well, how do you become joyful? Actually, the funny thing is you don't become joyful. You realize by eliminating different barriers to that joy that you've always been joy. Meditation has it's that beautiful contrast between yoga, what you learn in yoga, and what you learn in college or school. As Patanjali put it, the divine experience is, he used the simple word smriti, memory. When you remember who you are, when you experience this joy inside, you remember it instantly. You could have been without it and not experienced it for millions of years, and still when it comes, you know, oh, that's what it's all about. Nobody has to teach you these things. What you have to do is unlearn this thought that I'm Indian, I'm an American, I have a sense of ego, or I have a sense of humility, I have artistic sense or an economic sense, or all the various things. I'm a man, I'm a woman, I'm old, I'm young. In our mall, in the Metropolitan Mall in Gurgaon, we have one little, I've taken a lot of photographs, and one of them is of a shell, and it shows all the compartments, and it says, there's a saying with every one of these photographs. It says that no matter what your age, you will be that for such a short time. Why be identified with it? Don't identify yourself with your body. It's something you have to carry around. You have to feed it. You have to treat it properly. But don't make it your religion. Some people are so health-minded that that's all they think about. Understand that this is just something you're living in, like a hermit crab. I would have put a picture of a hermit crab there, but they're not a very lovely creature. And besides, I never took a picture of a hermit crab, whereas this is a beautiful spider. I took it in Hawaii. It's called a banana spider, I'm told. Anyway, the thing is that no matter how lovely your body, no matter how wonderful your experience is, don't say, oh, I'm so glad I'm me. Just say, he is the one. Sometimes people say they like to be around me. I say, really, I'm the one person I'm trying to get away from, so you're really not helping matters. We want to get away from this sense of I. That's what the spiritual path is really all about. God created all of us as himself. We are manifestations of that same self. It's just incredible how that infinite consciousness, capable of producing billions of galaxies, it's estimated there are about 100 billion galaxies. Through the Hubble telescope, a little square inch of space, you see these innumerable galaxies fading off into the distance. That same consciousness. And in this galaxy, our Milky Way galaxy, they're estimated to be 100 billion stars, many of them with planets. And although astronomers say, well, it isn't proved yet, well, yogis tell us it is. Yogis can go with those places. They can travel all over the universe. When you don't have your body and aren't identified with it, everything changes. And you realize that that infinite spirit became every single, not just every star, not just every planet, every tiny grain of sand. And he became you. Your true self is that infinite one who dreamed your consciousness. Remember, when you attain that, it isn't that you need to suppress your ego. Your ego is still your true self. It's just limited. You are not this little ego. You are the infinite who manifested as this little ego. You are all that is. Aham Brahmasmi. I am Brahman. Keep that thought in mind. Otherwise, what is life all about? Why did we come here? You look at people living, dying, having so many disappointments. What is it all for? I wrote this song just to emphasize that simple thought. What is it all for? There has to be an answer. Joy to you.
What is it for? Walking alone, alone. What is it for? Walking alone, walking alone. Must our paths ever be like the winds on the sea? Oh, walking alone. What is it for? Singing alone, alone. What is it for? Singing alone, singing alone. Must our songs ever be like the winds on the sea? Oh, singing alone. What is it for? Laughing alone, alone. What is it for? Laughing alone, laughing alone. Must our joys ever be like the winds on the sea? Oh, laughing alone. What is it for? Living alone, alone. What is it for? Living alone, living alone. Must our lives ever be like the winds on the sea? Oh, living alone. Oh,